let me start by saying some things where I think there's unanimous common ground. Being a city where tens of thousands of people sleep on the streets every night is sick and inhumane. Being a city where 5 people die on the streets every day is barbaric and is grossly obscene. And in the midst of this homeless crisis, we are a city of encampments, and that is for Los Angeles and for all of us as a body and individually a shame and a disgrace. The following, I think, is clear and is universally agreed upon. People should not be living in unregulated encampments in our parks. We agree on that. People should not be living outside or next to our children's schools. People shouldn't be living and lighting campfires in high fire areas or outside of people's homes. People shouldn't be living on sidewalks, blocking ADA access and making it necessary for people to walk in the street. Those are all places where people should not be living. So what's wrong with this ordinance today, and why am I voting against it? Because what we're doing today, even as improved, tells people who are unhoused and unsheltered and have no place to go where they cannot sleep, but it does not tell them where they can sleep. That's what it comes down to for me. Everything else aside, that's what it comes down to for me. Where can people go? Where can people sleep when they do not have an alternative? Yes, we have created more housing units and created more shelter beds and more interventions, tiny homes and cabins and everything else than ever before. We have more beds available than we have ever had. Against opposition and against protest, members of this council, almost every member of this council, has done more in a year or two than previous councils did in generations. And it has not been easy. We all know that. Hell, I haven't got just protests, I've got lawsuits and appeals that have tried to stop or slow down everything I've tried to do. But despite all that work, despite all that progress, we still do not have enough units or enough beds. We still do not have enough places for everybody to go who wants to go somewhere. We still cannot tell people who ask us, where can I go to sleep? We're tens of thousands of units away from that. I asked LASA this morning. We have enough beds in the city of Los Angeles to house 39% of our unsheltered population. What about the other 61%? Now, I know everyone around this horseshoe has stories to tell of somebody who has refused an offer of shelter. I do too. I believe that that is usually for deeper reasons than the rather facile explanation that they are service resistant, but that's a discussion for another day. Although I will note, this week in Venice, in an area that most people have determined to be or described as one of the most service-resistant homeless populations around, 64 people in 9 days have moved indoors. And I also note that there are some around the horseshoe who will say, justifiably, that they have provided a greater number of beds in their district than the number of unhoused people living in their district. Why can't they enforce? Well, as we all know, there are districts that have started with significantly smaller homeless populations than other districts. And citywide, we still do not have beds for the other 61%. And we are not the Los Angeles Confederation of Council Districts. We are the city of Los Angeles. I also know that everyone around the horseshoe has heard and has had evidence or experience with people on the streets who are disruptive or problematic. I have too. And I think an ordinance like this is clearly designed to try to get to that problem, and it's easy to center the conversation around that. That's the dominant image of homelessness in the public imagination. But no matter how many next door posts we read or how many Streets of Shame segments we see, that's not the reality of most people who are unhoused and unsheltered in Los Angeles. And it's times like this where I wish we had that commission on lived experience of people with homelessness, so people who know the impact of what we may do can sit at that table and look us all in the eye and tell us. Absent that, I'm going to share some of my lived experience. Most of you know, I think all of you know, I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic. I have not been shy about sharing that experience. What I don't share as openly or as frequently about is my experience being unhoused. And I say unhoused, I don't say homeless, because I think it draws a false parallel between my experience and today's experience on the streets. I didn't live in an encampment, but I literally had no place to live. For periods of time, I did not have, in my 20s in Los Angeles, a home. Most of the time, I was able to couch surf, or friends would give me a place to crash. Sometimes I could scratch together a few dollars and stay in a really gross motel. But then there are nights I did not have a place to go. Some of those nights, I slept in my car, and a few of those nights, when my car was in the shop, I slept on the beach. I can't tell you how much turmoil there is in your heart when the sun is setting and you don't know where you can sleep. I cannot describe how demoralizing and dehumanizing and defeating that experience is when you don't know where you're going to sleep. I can't adequately express the combination of shame and frustration and anger and desperation and confusion you feel in that moment. And that's why I keep asking again and again, where can people sleep? I said the other day, show me a map. Somebody told my staff, one of my staff members, well, Mike's asking for the impossible. It's impossible to make that map. Imagine how impossible that is for the person who doesn't know where they can sleep when we are short tens of thousands of beds. Imagine this day, you've lived an existence outdoors. People have refused to make eye contact with you all day long. That's a good day. Other days, people have shouted obscenities at you. Maybe you thought you were going to get housing, and your caseworker didn't show up. Or your cell phone wasn't charged, and so you couldn't make the right contact. Imagine you're sitting there all day, and you haven't showered, and your clothes are dirty. Your face is sunburned, and you are dead dog tired. You haven't had a moment to relax and to drop your guard and just to exhale. And then at the end of that day, you have to ask yourself, where can I sleep? Where can I be so inconspicuous that no one will yell at me? Where can I spend the night where I'm safe from an automatic sprinkler turning on in the middle of the night and soaking me and all of my belongings? Where can I be safe enough from assault that I can actually fall asleep and get deep sleep? Where can I be and stash my belongings so they're not stolen when I sleep? Where can I sleep that is quiet enough that I can actually get some rest? With this ordinance, we say where people can't sleep, and all of those are reasonable places to say people can't sleep. But we make those questions I just asked harder for that person to answer. We increase the uncertainty, and we increase the turmoil. We increase the self-hatred, and we worsen the situation. My lived experience teaches me that we are all fragile, that we are all breakable and often break, and that we all stumble and fall down, and that we often need somebody to help us up. I believe deep in my heart that every member of this body wants to help people up. I believe that firmly. But telling people where they cannot sit, sleep, or lie does not tell them or does not help them how to get back up. I know my no vote is unpopular. I've gotten calls from millionaires. I've gotten attacks from the police union. I've been vilified by unnamed trolls. I've been told, you're going to be responsible for death. I've been told, you really don't care about people living on the streets. I've been told, you don't have the political will to do what's right. I've been told this will be the end of your career. I've been told you will live to regret this. I've had people call me a faggot. I've had people say, I hope your family suffers. It sucks. We've all lived with that. Every single one of us. It's horrible. You know what? It's okay. Because today, when I go home, I know where I can sleep. I don't have that feeling of not knowing. When I go home tonight, no matter what else, I know where I can sleep. And everybody in Los Angeles deserves to know that. And until we can tell them that, I'm a no vote. Thank you.